Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh, they're in big trouble. Oh, hi everyone. It's Thursday, and this is our reading session. We've been reading Kensuke's Kingdom, whoever Kensuke is, and we don't know what his kingdom is or her kingdom. Okay, I'm going to read you the next couple of pages from Kensuke's Kingdom. As I'm reading, I'd like you to look out for some of the words that I've highlighted on there. And some might be new words to you. I'd just like you to have a think about what they might mean. Um, think about them in the sentence. Are there any clues to give you an idea of what they mean? You'll see what I mean. I'll take over your screen now. Okay, so the first word that I want you to look out for is this one, veered. We'll come to that in a minute. Just see if you can work out what the word means from the context or from the sentence. All right, here we go. So if you recall, Michael and Stella have fallen off the boat in the storm and they're drifting in the sea. Mum and Dad down below, the boat, still asleep. Let's find out what happens next. I was furious with myself for being so silly. I was still cursing myself when I thought I heard the sound of singing. Someone was singing out there in the darkness. I called out, but no one replied. So that was what Stella had been barking at. I looked again for my ball, but now it had disappeared. That ball had been very precious to me, precious to us all. I knew then I had just lost a great deal more than a football. I was angry with Stella. The whole thing had been her fault. She was still barking. I couldn't hear the singing anymore. I called her again, whistled her in. She wouldn't come. I got to my feet and went forward. I took her by the collar and pulled, but she would not be moved. I couldn't drag her all the way back, so I bent down to pick her up. She was still reluctant. Then I had her in my arms, but she was struggling. I heard the wind above me and the sails. I remember thinking, this is silly. You haven't got your safety harness on. You haven't got your life jacket on. You shouldn't be doing this. Then the boat veered violently and I was thrown sideways. So veered, what does that mean? The boat veered violently and I was thrown sideways. The boat, something violently. The boat, yeah, that's a good idea. It could be that. The boat, yeah, that's a good guess. Could be that as well. I think it's something to do with it. It moved, it rocked, it shook violently. Let's carry on. With my arms full, I had no time to grab the guardrail. We were in the cold of the sea before I could even open my mouth to scream. My cries for help could not possibly be heard. I thought then of the sharks cruising the black water beneath me, scenting me, always searching me out, homing in on me, and I knew there could be no hope. I would be eaten alive. Either that or I would drown slowly. Nothing could save me. I trod water, frantically searching the impenetrable darkness about me for something, anything to swim towards. There was nothing. So imagine you're in the water, you're in the middle of the ocean, you're treading water frantically. Frantically, what might that mean if you're frantically treading water, frantically searching? Quickly searching? Desperately searching? Does it mean quickly or desperately? Searching the impenetrable darkness about me, searching, looking through the something darkness. I'm thinking the dark darkness, the lonely darkness, maybe. We'll come back to that. We carry on. Then a sudden glimpse of white in the sea, the breaking of waves, perhaps, but there were no waves. Stella! It had to be. I was so thankful, so relieved not to be all alone. I called out and swam towards her. She would keep bobbing away from me, vanishing, reappearing, then vanishing again. She had seemed so near, but it took several minutes of hard swimming before I came close enough to reach out and touch her. Only then did I realize my mistake. Stella's head was mostly black. This was white. It was my football. I grabbed it and clung on, feeling the unexpected and wonderful buoyancy of it. Buoyancy, feeling the buoyancy of it. A football, imagine you're clinging on, you're bobbing around about in the water, you're clinging onto your football. Buoyancy. Buoyancy may be something to do with, I don't know, keeping you afloat, possibly. I held on, treading water and calling for Stella. There was no answer. I called and called, but every time I opened my mouth, now the seawater washed in. I had to give her up. I had to save myself if I could. There was little point in wasting energy by trying to swim. After all, I had nowhere to swim to. Instead, I would simply float. I would cling to my football, tread water gently and wait for the Peggy Sue to come back. Sooner or later, they had to discover I was overboard. Sooner or later, they would come looking for me. I mustn't kick too much. Just enough to keep my chin above the water, no more. Too much movement would attract the sharks. Morning would come soon. I had to hang on till then. I had to. The water wasn't that cold. I had my football. I had a chance. I kept telling myself that over and over again, but the world stayed stubbornly black about me, and I could feel the water slowly chilling me to death. I tried singing to stop myself from shivering, to take my mind off the sharks. I sang every song I could remember, but after a while, I'd forget the words. Always I came back to the only song I was sure I could finish. 10 green bottles. I sang it out loud again and again. It reassured me to hear the sound of my own voice. It made me feel less alone in the sea, and always I looked for the grey glint of dawn. But it would not come, and it would not come. Eventually, I fell silent, and my legs would just not kick anymore. I clung to my football, my head drifting into sleep. I knew I mustn't, but I couldn't help myself. My hands kept slipping off the ball. I was fast losing the last of my strength. I would go down, down to the bottom of the sea, lie in my grave amongst the seaweed and the sailors' bones, the shipwrecks. The strange thing was that I really didn't mind. I didn't care, not anymore. I floated away into sleep, into my dreams. And in my dream, I saw a boat gliding towards me, silent over the sea. The Peggy Sue! Dear, dear Peggy Sue! They'd come back for me. I knew they would. Strong arms grabbed me. I was hauled upwards and out of the water. I lay there on the deck, gasping for air like a landed fish. I was hauled upwards and out of the water. Someone was bending over me, shaking me, talking to me. I could not understand a word that was being said, but it didn't matter. I felt Stella's hot breath on my face. her tongue licking my ear. She was safe. I was safe. All was well. I was woken by a howling like the howling of a gale through the masts. I looked about me. There were no masts above me. There were no sails, no movement under me either, no breath of wind. Stella Artois was barking, but some way off. I was not on a boat at all, but lying stretched out on sand. The howling became a screaming, a fearful crescendo of screaming that died away in its own echoes. I sat up. I was on a beach, a broad white sweep of sand with trees growing thick and lush behind me, right down to the beach. Then I saw Stella prancing about in the shallows. I called her, and she came bounding up out of the sea to greet me, her tail circling wildly. When all the leaping and licking and hugging were done, I struggled to my feet. I was weak all over. I looked about me. The wide blue sea was empty as the cloudless sky above. No Peggy Sue. No boat. Nothing. No one. I called again and again by my mother and father. I called until the tears came and I could call no more, until I knew there was no point. I stood there for some time trying to work out how I had got here, how it was that I'd survived. I had such confused memories of being picked up, of being on board the Peggy Sue. But I knew now I couldn't have been. I must have dreamed it, dreamed the whole thing. I must have clung to my football and kept myself afloat until I was washed up. I thought of my football then, but it was nowhere to be seen. Stella, of course, was unconcerned about all the whys and wherefores. She kept bringing me sticks to throw and would go galloping after them into the sea without a care in the world. Then came the howling again from the trees, and the hackles went up on the back of Stella's neck. She charged up the beach, barking and barking until she was sure she had silenced the last of the echoes. It was a musical, plaintive howling this time, not at all menacing. I thought I recognized it. I had heard howling like this once before on a visit to London Zoo. Gibbons, funky gibbons, my father would have called them. Right, your turn now. So I'd like you to try to match the word by looking at the meaning of it in its sentence to its definition or the meaning. So I've done the first one. Veered means to change direction suddenly. The boat veered violently. The boat changed direction suddenly. Can you do the rest for me? Best of luck.